Painted me my cup as well. Oh, it's for... Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Leanne Washington, and I'm the minister who's blessed to serve this beloved community. How do you know I'm the minister? The robe helps. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. Why the bell rings, why the chalice is lit, why children come forward for a story, why we share joys and sorrows, and why we give, among other things. And why I sometimes look like I'm auditioning for Hogwarts. I wish I had a wand that would do magical things. But before we talk about worship, we're going to do some worship. And that begins with music. You can come on up, Aaron. Now, a quick word about what you're about to hear. In many traditions, this is called a prelude. And in fact, in our order of service, it says prelude. Yep. It's meant to mark a shift from scattered to gathered, from conversation to contemplation. The prelude is traditionally the deep breath before we begin. Is that what it is here? In our congregation's history, this time has often functioned more as what is commonly referred to as gathering music, which is also beautiful, and it provides music to wrap you while you are reuniting with each other after a week apart, where you're sharing tidbits of great news that you've experienced. You're making connection in that moment, and that is beautiful. The music says you belong here before we even start to do anything. Now, every community makes a choice about how it crosses the threshold. Literally, coming in from the breezeway, and spiritually, mentally, emotionally, as we begin the service as a special time together. So for this morning, when Nick begins to play, let's treat it as a true prelude. When the first note sounds, we cross that invisible threshold, not of walls, but of attention. We let the conversation soften or disappear. We release unfinished thoughts to be picked up later in Friendship Hall during coffee hour. We turn together, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even sometimes physically, toward what is worthy. I invite you now to enjoy the prelude. Before we engage in the welcome, let's consider what welcome actually means. In the ancient world, hospitality wasn't courtesy. It was a sacred obligation. To welcome someone was to extend the safety of your tent, the food off your table, and the honor of your name within the community. The guest, a stranger to the community, stood under your protection, was guided by your customs and explanation of them, and welcomed through your introduction of them to the people with whom you were connected. To fail in hospitality was not just awkward, it was immoral. Worship inherits that seriousness. When we say welcome, we are not being polite. We are saying, we see you, we hear you. You are not a stranger to be managed or a demographic to be recorded and counted. You are a presence, a human being, to be received and embraced. Belonging here does not require agreement. It requires mutual regard. And now Aaron will lead us in that welcome.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. My name is Erin Teresi, and I am your lay leader today. Please join me in welcoming each other into the space made sacred by our presence. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past,
we welcome you.
Whatever your theological stance,
we welcome you.
Whomever you are and whomever you love,
we welcome you.
Wherever you come from and whatever your journey has been,
we welcome you, the whole of you.
Our Sunday services are as diverse as we are. So if you are visiting our church for the first time, please come back again so that you can experience various topics and styles of worship. Though we enjoy a variety of worship services, one thing remains constant is our mission.
Before we affirm our mission statement, let's pause for a moment and ask, why do we do this at all? A mission statement is the compass of a covenantal community. It names the direction we have chosen to travel together and the kind of impact we hope to have on the world around us. Aristotle would have called this our telos, our ultimate aim. Everything has one. An acorn grows toward oakness. A flute is crafted for music. A community exists for the flourishing of its members and its world. Our mission statement is not doctrine to memorize. It's the direction to live into. We do not gather around a uniform belief. We gather around a shared purpose. That's why we speak these words aloud in worship, not as a rule book, not as a slogan, but as a reminder of who we are becoming. Aaron will now lead us in affirming that shared purpose.
There's too many of us now for the band.
Please join me in affirming our mission statement. By building a loving religious community that nourishes the spirit, celebrates life, and cherishes the connectedness of all things, we will transform ourselves and our world.
And I forgot to put anything in the section for announcements. Okay. Does anyone have a pressing announcement, one or two, that you would like to share with the congregation? They are all in the intercom. We are having a Meet the Church orientation session immediately after the worship service for those of you who have signed up. And if you haven't, but think, gee, I think I'd like to do that, you are welcome as well. All right, let me.
Oh, there's.
Yeah, we're not doing this. Oh, okay. So we've rearranged things a little bit for this teaching moment, and Aaron's going to make sure I don't miss anything.
Newcomers and guests are always welcome to participate in any of our church activities. If we have any newcomers or guests with us this morning, we invite you to introduce yourselves. Please raise your hand, and someone will bring you a microphone. Bruce will bring you a microphone.
Hello. We're the Zoo Falls. I'm Matt, this is Orion, and this is my wife Lauren, and we're here. Hi.
Anyone else? Thank you, Bruce. Please join us for a coffee hour in Friendship Hall immediately following the service. It is good to be together, both in person and virtually. Okay.
Now, this is the part of the service we call opening words and call to worship. Sometimes those are separated out in the bulletin. Sometimes they appear together. And I know a lot of people in the Unitarian Universalist world are a little uncomfortable with the word worship. It makes them feel a little uneasy. Mostly because many of us have found our way to Unitarian Universalism because there was something off-putting or something hurtful about our participation in a more standard religious setting. And worship seemed to be what was happening and might be what we were really uncomfortable with in that context. Worship can sound like submission. It can sound like unquestioning belief. It can sound like checking your intellect at the door. But the word itself comes from an Old English root meaning worthship, the name of something that is worthy. To worship is to pause long enough to ask, what truly matters? What deserves our attention, our loyalty, our care, and perhaps even our sacrifice of comfort? In that sense, worship is not about believing certain things. It's about aligning ourselves with what we find most worthy: truth, love, justice, beauty, compassion, community, just to name a few. Even those who don't believe in God still live as if something matters most to them because something does. Some might name science, some might name family, some might name human dignity, some might name the fragile web of life. But we human beings are built to look out into the world, to decide and discern what is valuable to us, and then seek to support it and promote it. We all orient our lives around something. Worship is the communal act of acknowledging that orientation. It's not intellectual surrender. It's intentional attention. It's not performance. It's authentic participation. It's the disciplined practice of remembering what we value before we scatter out into the week in front of us. Historically, opening words were an invocation, a calling of the divine. In this tradition, in the current Unitarian Universalist tradition, we don't summon a deity so much as we summon awareness. We summon courage. We summon one another. So let us begin. Please join me in responsively reading the call to worship written by Jacob Trapp. It's found as number 411 in the gray hymnal. My lines will be in white. Your lines will be in blue. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in the sunlight, or a grain of sand.
To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree stirred with the wind, or the passing shadow of a cloud.
To worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It's to pause from work and listen to a strain of music.
To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still small voice within.
Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain.
Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through deeds of kindness and through acts of love.
Worship is the mystery within us, reaching out to the mystery beyond.
It is an inarticulate silence, yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment, open to the sky of the eternal.
Now, let us join in worship. Before the bell is rung, I want to name its history. This bell bears a plaque that many of us may never have noticed. It was given in the memory of all the men, women, and children throughout the world who fell to the AIDS epidemic, offered by the family of Carl E. Geyer in 1993. Each time it sounds, it carries remembrance. It reminds us that worship does not float above history. It rises from it, from grief, from love, from lives that mattered and lives that continue to matter. As a way of turning our attention away from the mundane and toward this time made sacred by our presence and our intention, we ring the bell 3 times, listening each time until the sound disappears.
The flaming chalice originated during World War II as a symbol of refuge and hope. Fire has always symbolized presence and transformation. Lighting it together reminds us that community is both warmth and responsibility. The flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith as we join together with other UU churches and fellowships in this familiar ritual. As we share its light of this chalice in our sanctuary, we also welcome those of you viewing remotely to light a chalice of your own. This flame is not only light, it is an invitation. It is a presence, an invitation to courage, an invitation to transformation. May the warmth of our spirits clarify our purpose and give guide to us beyond this hour into lives of love and action.
Group singing synchronizes breathing and heart rhythms. Neuroscientists call this entrainment. The hymns we sing literally align us physically before we align theologically. Wake Up My Senses is a prayer for awareness, for eyes that notice beauty, for ears that hear truth, and for hands ready to serve. It reminds us that worship does not remove us from the world, it awakens us to it. Please rise in body or in spirit as you are willing and able, and join in singing our opening hymn, Wake Up My Senses, number 298 in the gray hymnal. The words will appear on the screens. Human beings steady one another. A calm voice, a shared silence, even breathing in the same room can settle a restless nervous system. Worship is not just a rehearsal of ideas. It's the practice of presence. In a digital world, we exchange information constantly. What we exchange less often is attention, real, embodied attention. This part of the service reminds us that belonging is not abstract. It happens face to face. And one of the oldest ways communities teach belonging is through story. The Time for All Ages descends from a long tradition of moral storytelling and shared wisdom. When I sometimes say I don't have much to add after the children's story, I mean it. Clarity often arrives in simple narrative form. Robin will come forward to invite our young and young at heart to come forward as well, and we'll be sharing the story of the chalice and why it's important to Unitarian Universalists today. Come on forward. How did that end up down there? Oh.
They're just working my patience today, these candles. So,
Here, I can do that if you want to start.
I got it. That one started. All right, so I am up here lighting some candles, guys. Kids, why do we light candles? Why do we light a chalice here every week? Do you know? Do we do it in your classroom? We do it in your classroom, right? There's always one, and we say some things about... What? In your school class, you do the Pledge of Allegiance. That's absolutely right. And here, we do what's called a chalice lighting. We light a chalice, and we have some words with hand movements. And when you go upstairs, you'll get to do that today. And we're going to carry, actually, one of our chalice up with us to class today. So you're going to light it down here with me. Okay? So these are all chalices. These are all different kinds of chalices. What do they kind of look like? What's the bottom part look like? What's this look like? Yeah. Looks like a cup. Great. And what do you do with a cup?
You get some water and stuff in it.
You get some water. You can drink out of it. You might have like a hot cocoa. If you're feeling crappy, you might have like tea or something like that in it or something like that, right? So, sorry. Like right now that I really need it. And then what's this part? Or candle, right? And these are electric candles, but these candles that are lit, what does a candle do? Yeah, it burns, but like, what's the point? Like, why do we have candles in our homes? Yeah. Yes, you can use a candle. If I put my hand over there, I can feel how warm it is. Don't want it to too low because that would burn, but right here, I can feel the warmth of the candle. It also, what if the power goes out in your house? Do you ever light candles when the power goes out? Yeah. Sometimes you use a flashlight because we live in an electric world where we have electric lights, but candles are sometimes really nice. Yeah.
We have a fire at our house, we have a chimney at our house, and there's a fireplace, and we got a fire.
That's wonderful. I am very jealous of you and your fireplace in your house. I love a fireplace. It's very nice. So, I'm going to tell you a story today about why we light a candle. We call this a flaming chalice. So this is the chalice, and then this is our flame. We call it a flaming chalice. And I'm going to tell you the story today about why in Unitarian Universalist churches we light one of these before every service and why we light it before your classroom. So this is a true story. So a long time ago, some of us it's not so long. Some of us it is. About 86 years ago, there was this terrible war that was happening in a country that was very far away. Not very far away, but it's on the other, a little bit far away. And in this war, there were these really bad people called the Nazis. And the Nazis, they didn't like the Jewish people. They didn't like a lot of people, but they really didn't like the Jewish people. Right? And so the Jewish people were good people. There was nothing wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. But the Nazis, who had control, decided that they didn't want Jewish people around anymore. So they took all of their stuff, took their property, took their money, and then they took the Jewish people to this terrible prison camps where they kept them. Some Jewish people, a lot of Jewish people, died in those camps because they didn't take care of them. And then they kept on, and some people survived, but they were very sick because the Nazis were very bad people and they didn't take care of them. So but every time in the world that there is a bunch of bad people, there's always more good people. Always more good people. And there were some really good people who wanted to help the Jewish people, wanted to help get them away from these bad Nazi people. So so one of these groups, it was called the Unitarian Service Committee. Does anybody recognize Unitarian? Where's that word? It's our name. We're Unitarian Universalists. So the Unitarian Service Committee, they were like, hey, we need to make the Jewish people realize that we're here to help them, and we need to find a way for them to know. So they wanted to make a symbol. And this symbol was for not just to put on doors and stuff so people knew it was safe, but also like papers. They would use documents to sneak people out of the country, and they wanted to make it look official, so they needed a symbol. So there was this one Unitarian service people. They were in a place called Portugal, which is far away. And in Portugal, they said, we need a symbol. Can we get some help? So they got this guy. His name is Hans Deutsch. And he was a Jewish guy who had gotten away from the Nazis. And he was an artist. And so they said, Hans, can you help us out? We want to come up with an official-looking symbol for us. And so he was from Czechoslovakia, which is another faraway place. And he was from Czechoslovakia. And Czechoslovakia, they did have a symbol that was a chalice with a flame in it. So he drew this symbol, and you can see it up on the board. This was the original symbol that the Unitarian Service Committee used. And so they would put these symbols on documents, they would put these symbols in windows, and the Jewish people, even though a lot of them spoke different languages, knew they were safe because they knew this symbol. Yes?
What are you holding?
I'm just holding notes so I don't forget what I'm supposed to talk about, which I'm not even looking at. So they did this, so they created this symbol. Now, so things changed. The Nazis were defeated, but the Unitarian Service Committee, they continued, and they just moved to helping other people. Years later, they became the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which is our name, right? So you have the Unitarian Service Committee becoming the Unitarian Universalist Committee. But you know what? That flaming symbol, that wasn't in the Unitarian or the Universalist churches. That wasn't our symbol. It wasn't until 1961, 50 years ago or so. 60 years ago? 60 years ago or so? That the Unitarians and the Universalists got together. And then in the 70s, they were like, we need a symbol that represents us. And so they looked back at this symbol and said, we want that symbol to represent us. So now, all across the world in Unitarian Universalist churches, people light a candle inside a cup or a flaming chalice. And it represents, we are Unitarian Universalists. But you know what else it represents? What do you think? Okay, go ahead, she's back there. What else do you think this symbol represents besides saying we're Unitarian Universalists? What do you think it was for? What did the Unitarian Service Committee do? It helped people. And as Unitarian Universalists, we think it's very important that we help people. So every time you light a chalice, remember that it represents, we are Unitarian Universalists, but it also represents our job is to help people. Okay? And so what I'd like you guys to do is come up and light these chalices for me. Okay? So everyone that has like the little electric ones, I want you guys to light. So could you come up and light them all for me? Go ahead. You just click the bottom. Perfect. Put it back in there. Oops. Okay. All right. Well, that's always the case with these things. Nothing's ever perfect. Okay. So, that one's on. That's good. All right. So I'm going to ask you to carry this one. And I'm going to ask you, Max, to carry this one up to your class, because that's the chalice from your class, and that's the chalice from your class. So we're going to go up to our classes now. You're welcome to come join us.
We actually don't do
Yeah, well, we're going to go up together. I'll show you. We're going to go up to our classes, and the congregation is going to sing us out. Thank you guys for listening to my story. Let's go.
This next part of our service is quietly countercultural. Much of our culture prizes self-sufficiency. Here, we practice interdependence. When we name joy, we amplify it. When we name sorrow, we distribute its weight. I invite our lay pastoral care team to lead us in joys and sorrows.
Good morning. I'm Ruth Horwitz from the Lay Pastoral Care Team. During our service, we create this sacred space for sharing within our community. It is a time to share the significant life passages with the congregation so that you can be held in loving care. I'll be reading the joys and sorrows this morning, and Susan Powers will be placing a stone representing each joy or sorrow in the sand. The sand represents our congregation supporting our sorrows and lifting up our joys. Today we have a sorrow from Ann Moore. My cousin has a severe brain bleed requiring surgery. To Ann and family, we say, we're holding you in our hearts. And a sorrow from Peggy Fallon. Peggy's son-in-law is having surgery on Thursday for esophageal cancer. Peggy asks for your prayers, good vibes, hopes, positive thoughts, and healing energy to help him and our family through the surgery and the lengthy recovery. To Peggy and family, we say, we're holding you in our hearts. And a joy from Dennis Doubleday. I received a letter informing me that Mary's kidneys helped two other women, one 63 and one 73, get off dialysis and have a second chance at life. To Dennis and family, we say, we share in your joy. We now place one more stone in the sand for all the joys and sorrows that exist in our hearts but remain unspoken today. From far and near, please say with me our caring words. Let us hold in our circle of caring each person here. Let us hold in our hearts those who are unable to be with us today. Let us hold in our memories those who have moved on. Let us find comfort in knowing that we are not alone.
Silence is an ancient technology. Before there were microphones or books, there was breath. Meditation trains attention, and attention is the beginning of compassion. We cannot care about what we never truly notice. In many traditions, this moment would be a pastoral prayer. In ours, we often practice shared silence instead. Not because we have nothing to say, but because some things can only be received inwardly. This is the part of worship where we allow everything we've heard and sung and shared to settle. I invite you now to sit comfortably. If it feels right, close your eyes or soften your gaze toward a point of focus, such as our chalice flame. We'll sit in silence for just a minute today, which to my way of thinking is long enough to notice and short enough not to panic about the length of this service. Notice your breath. No need to change it, just notice it. As you breathe, consider this. What part of our worship feels like home to you? Where do you feel most alive? And gently, without judgment, what part do you resist? What feels unfamiliar or challenging? Let those questions rest without forcing answers. Notice the flame, notice your breath, notice the people around you, even in silence. We are not alone. May this quiet deepen our capacity to listen to ourselves, to one another, and to the world that needs us. attention back to this space. We have gathered our attention. We've strengthened our belonging. We've shared our vulnerability. We've practiced silence. Now we turn toward wisdom. Worship without thought becomes sentiment. Thought without community becomes abstraction. This part of our service holds both. The sermon grows out of ancient roots, from Jewish Torah commentary and from the Greek tradition of public reflection. It is less about persuasion and more about wrestling with meaning. We read because wisdom accumulates. We reflect because interpretation evolves. Meaning rises through music, through story, through reasoned reflection, and through shared voice. We begin with music.
Good morning. I'd like to share with you a bit of a peek behind the window, behind the curtain of why the choir is sharing this particular anthem and some of its significance. This is a piece by John Rutter. For those in the choral world, John Rutter is extremely well known. For those of you who might not have heard of him before, let me speak by analogy. Born in the mid-40s, London, widely popular in the US and UK, knighted a few years ago. He's kind of the Paul McCartney of the choral singing world. This is his inscription for this piece. Distant Land was written in 1990, soon after the demolition of the Berlin Wall and the release of Nelson Mandela from prison. It was premiered in Carnegie Hall, New York. Though he told 60 Minutes in, I believe, 2002, that he wasn't particularly religious, working in the choral world, most of his works are religious in nature. Most of them are Christmas songs, although his voice is really sort of the intersection between humanism and religion. Even this piece, Distant Land, has a biblical reference, although it's a beautiful celebration of our conversation and the conversation between religion and humanism. I also want to give you a peek into the window of what the choir does as we prepare for a moment like this. I had the pleasure yesterday of reading a beautiful sermon that Mary Doubleday preached here in 2009, where she considered the many aspects of lyrics and when to change them and the conversation that takes place both with hymns and also with anthems about when to and why to, and also celebrating the process, celebrating that sometimes even in rehearsal there's a conversation about when to change and what to change and costs and benefits, and it was so well written. I hope you hear it again someday. Although I would like to share with you Mary's own edit of this piece so that you hear it when it comes. Let's see. There's a moment where the line is, I hear it deep and strong, rise up in prayer. O Lord, we are many, help us to be one. And Mary has substituted because for O Lord. So hear the line now. I hear it deep and strong, rise up in prayer. Because we are many, help us to be one. Hope you enjoy it.
It shines so clear.
when we have a reading, which we don't always have, it often provides the anchor for the message of the day. Sometimes it provides an alternate perspective from the message of the day. And sometimes it provides us with an opportunity to look at the same questions, the same issues, the same treatments in a different tradition. Today's readings will do a little bit of both.
Today's readings come from Rabindranath Tagore, often called the Bard of Bengal. He lived from 1861 to 1941 and was a poet, philosopher, composer, and social reformer. Tagore believed that the divine was not confined to temples or doctrines, but lives in human dignity and daily life. He wrote of a faith that transcends division and of a worship that awakens the free mind. We begin with poem 11 from Gitanji, where he challenges empty rituals and calls us into a living worship. Leave the chanting and the singing and telling of beads. Whom dost thou worship in this lonely, dark corner of the temple with the doors all shut? Open thine eyes and see that thy God is not here before thee. He is there where the tiller is tilling the hard ground and where the pathmaker is breaking stones. He is with them in the sun and in the shower and in the garment that is covered in dust. Put off thy holy mantle, and even like him, come down on the dusty soil. Deliverance? Where is there deliverance to be found? Our Master himself has joyfully taken upon himself the bounds of creation. He is bound with us all forever. Come out of thy meditations and leave aside thy flowers and incense. What harm is there if thy clothes become tattered and stained? Meet him and stand by him in the toil and in the sweat of thy brow. In poem 35, Tagore gives voice to the longing for freedom, a freedom of mind, a freedom of conscience, a freedom from fear. Where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where the words come out of the depths of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms into perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sands of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thoughts and action. Into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake.
There's a reason that worship has structure, not because we love rules. Heaven knows we're Unitarian Universalists and we do not love rules. not because we fear improvisation, but because structure creates a container, and containers matter. We gather in what was once a dairy barn, a place built to hold nourishment, hay, milk, the daily labor of sustaining a community. Now it holds something less visible, but just as necessary, shared meaning. Some of you call this octagonal space the West Room. Geographically, that's correct. I call it the sanctuary. West Room tells us where we are. Sanctuary tells us what this space is for when we gather together on Sunday mornings. Long before it was theological, sanctuary meant refuge, a place where you could lay down fear, lay down pursuit and being pursued, lay down armor. When I use that word, I'm naming what we're trying to create, a container sturdy enough to hold grief and joy, doubt and hope, without demanding that any of us perform or act like we have all the answers or that nothing bothers us. And what happens inside this container does not happen by accident. The prelude gathers our scattered attention. The bell marks the threshold. The chalice lights the interior and names our identity. The story shapes imagination and invites us into a deeper understanding. The chancel focuses our shared work, and the pulpit signals reflection. Each element builds the container. This is not a stage for performance. When I'm up here on Sunday mornings, when lay leaders are up here on Sunday mornings, when guest speakers are up here on Sunday mornings, this is a chancel, not a stage. It's a space set apart for our shared meaning making. And this is not a lecture for information transfer. It's a pulpit, a place where we wrestle with what matters. The choir lends breath, the music director shapes tone, the pianist carries emotion, the tech team extends our reach. Ushers and greeters widen the opening, and lay leaders lend presence. And the congregation completes it. Without you, this architecture, as beautiful as it is, would not be the sanctuary that it becomes on Sunday mornings. Structure protects something fragile and, frankly, countercultural nowadays. Outside these beautiful glass doors, worth is measured by productivity. Deadlines, metrics, titles, even in retirement, the questions that linger are, without all of that, who am I now? And without all of that, what is my usefulness? Sanctuary quietly resists the lie that your value is tied up with what you do for a living or what your output is. It reminds you that you are a lovely, beloved person with worth and dignity in your own right. And the community helps you frame new meaning in the various stages of your life. You're not your resume here. You're not your efficiency. You're not your former accomplishments. You are a precious presence in a shared act of meaning making. Now, we tell stories to children and to ourselves because narrative carries wisdom in ways argument alone cannot. The container must hold imagination as well as intellect. And that's also why garments matter. They are symbolic. When I put on a robe, I'm not elevating myself. I'm marking a role within the container. Now, you may have noticed that I prefer to be called Reverend Leanne. That's not hierarchy, it's clarity. You may remember in the West Wing that President Bartlett asked even his closest staff, people who had known him for a long time before his election, people who helped him get elected, to call him Mr. President. Do you remember that? Some of you are nodding your heads. Not because he needed flattery, but because he needed reminding. The title wasn't about distance. It wasn't about elevation. It was about discipline. It reminded him that the decisions were not personal anymore. They belonged to the public good. And something like that for me. Reverend is not decoration, it's a cue, a small verbal nudge that says, remember the covenant. When someone calls me Reverend Leanne, I immediately think I'm in covenant with you. That's a different relationship than I have with the postmistress or the grocery store clerk or the mailman. Remember the responsibility, Leanne. Remember that this service is what you signed up for. Not to create your own little kingdom, as if you use whatever let you, right? That's not happening. It's not about self-aggrandizement. It's about having felt a call for a specific type of being in the world. And when do you address me that way? It reminds me that even though I may have a whole bunch of feelings about whatever we're getting ready to talk about or do, the ones that matter are not my specific ones. They're the ones that serve the best interests of the congregation. By the way, don't you know, if I wanted to lean into formality, if it was an ego thing, I could insist on being called, get this, the Honorable Reverend Dr. Leanne Washington. It's a mouthful, isn't it? I could demand that because I was once an elected official in Whitestone, Virginia. Population 500. But nonetheless, in Virginia, and probably in Pennsylvania, and many other places, if you've ever been elected by the population to serve in a position, you are henceforth entitled to be addressed as honorable. Yeah. I too am a Unitarian Universalist, so that's a little much. And I assure you, Whitestone survived my tenure. Barely, but they did. So here's the point. Titles don't create character, but they do signal responsibility and commitments. Now, along with that is this idea of robes. The robes I have all have meaning for me. This black robe with the doctoral bars connects me to my legal training. This is the robe I would wear if I had the academic hood for the law. This is it. Although coming from the University of Virginia, if I were really cool, I'd have one with the little marks on it and a little special stuff and, all that. But basically, this is a doctoral robe. I chose it when I was an intern. The church where I interned, First Unitarian Universalist in Richmond, Virginia, had a policy of buying and gifting the first robe to their interns. So Reverend Jean asked me, of blessed memory, what robe would you like? Here's a catalog, pick a robe. And this is the robe my grandfather wore. This is called the Wesley. The style is called the Wesley style, after John Wesley. And I saw it and I thought, I am entitled, and this is what a minister looked like for me. So whenever I don it, I do remember my grandfather, whose grandfather was also a minister. Skips generations in my family. I'm the first woman, to be a minister, but it has skipped now. This is the third generation. I don't know, maybe my daughter will have children and one of them will decide to be a minister. Who knows? The blue robe over there was given to me by my mentor, Reverend Jean Pupke. It was bequeathed to me after her death. And when I wear it, it was my favorite. I loved it when she wore it. She had a whole bunch of robes. Like she had maybe 8 or 9, every color of the rainbow. But that was the one that when she wore it, I was like, ooh, that looks so lovely. Reverend Jean, you look so good. That's such a pretty blue. And so her wife had a note that she showed me where Reverend Jean had said when she retired, and she died before she retired, but that when she retired, the robe was to go to me if I wanted it. Yeah. The white robe signals transition and threshold. And so I often use it for baby namings, sometimes for when we're having a ritual here, like the bridging ceremony, I might wear the white robe. The garments are not costumes, they're signals. Judges wear robes, graduates wear gowns, firefighters wear uniforms. The clothing doesn't create the authority or the courage. It just helps us inhabit the roles that we have agreed to pay and make it easier for you all to register when someone is in that role. Now, when robes became associated with ministers rather than academics, many ministers rode a circuit of churches on horseback. Have you heard of circuit riders? Yeah, and they were in every denomination. My great-great-grandfather was a circuit riding judge. When those judges arrived, when those ministers arrived, they were hot and sweaty and dusty and might have eaten a meal on the road, so to speak. And so the robe, which had been kept pristine in a saddlebag, covered the mess and presented a unified, easily identifiable, and not too distracting garment that allowed the community to come together and listen to the minister's message. Now then there's stoles. Originally, the stole was a practical garment. The pre-Christian Romans called it stola for women. It was a long strip of fabric that could wipe the face, signal social rank, or civic office, and much like a man's tie, cover food stains and tears. Yeah. When it became associated with Christian ministers, it was thought to symbolize the yoke of Christ, the authority to administer sacraments, the apostolic succession, and in Unitarian Universalism, only ordained ministers wear stoles. I meant to be wearing this one, but I left it upstairs. This one, right here, is one of the ones that I was given when I was ordained. I was ordained jointly by 2 different congregations, and my home congregation, the Little Fellowship, 60 strong in Whitestone, Virginia, sewed this for me. Now, there are other stoles over there that are meaningful to me. One of them was given to me by this congregation when you installed me as your settled minister. You remember that? Another was made by the other congregation that ordained me. And one came from a congregation I served as an interim minister. Actually, two of them came from congregations I served as an interim minister. And then there are seasonal decorative ones that, my theory is this. It used to be that a stole, there were like 4 colors a year that showed where in the liturgical cycle the congregation was. So you knew if you were in Lent, if the minister or the priest had a purple stole on. But then women became ministers. And suddenly, stoles became fashion items. And now, across, Unitarian Universalist ministers are, I think, the most prevalent ones for this, but across all denominations, now ministers have stoles that reflect the season, particular events, and things like that. And then there are these. Some people have been wondering about these capes. These are made for Unitarian, not just ministers, any Unitarian Universalist. They have some chalices on them and some squiggles and circles indicating unity, indicating here, this one has some hearts on it. They were made by a company that was going out of business, and I was introduced to them by a colleague, and when I heard the company was going out of business, I was like, okay, well, now I got to get one of everything I can find. So there they are. So that just points out that ritual adapts, symbols shift, but the human need to gather and to lift up what's worthy does not disappear. We are meaning-making creatures. If we do not consciously create a container for what matters, for truth, for compassion, for freedom of mind, the culture will elevate something else for us. Productivity, outrage, consumption, status. Worship is resistance to accidental living. It gathers us, it steadies us, it protects what is fragile enough, long enough for us to carry it back out through these glass doors. You may call this the restroom. I will continue to call it the sanctuary, because geography tells us where we are, but sanctuary tells us why we're here. And together, week after week, we build this container strong enough to hold us all. Now, I mentioned in the service description that you might bring questions about what we do here and why. We're running out of time, so what I'm going to say is that I will be happy to answer some questions after the service during coffee hour if there is a lingering question about why we do what we do. I've been asked some of these questions all along and kind of compiled them and hoped that I was able to answer them for you, but being Unitarian Universalist as you are, undoubtedly somebody will have a question none of us ever thought of. So I'm happy to try to answer them if I can. Now, the responsive hymn, people have asked me, why do we have a response? What is that about? We didn't used to have that. That sounds weird. Sometimes it's a responsive hymn, sometimes it's a responsive call and response reading. This predates Christianity. It was shaped in synagogue worship and ancient civic assemblies. It reminds us that truth is not monologue, it's dialogue. And a responsive hymn or reading is the congregation's reply to the message. It is where reflection becomes shared voice. It's where we can be moved and touched through music in ways that we are not normally moved and touched by prose. In this beloved community, no one dictates the pattern of another's belief. Worship is not about uniformity. It's about what we name as worthy. We do not prescribe identical theology, but we do gather around shared convictions about what has worth: compassion, justice, truth, community, just to name a few. Worship is where we tend the shared forest of our faith. Each of us carries our own questions, convictions, doubts, and hopes. But worship is where the threads meet. The thread I bring, my commitments, my values, my acts of compassion, do not stand alone. It crosses and binds with yours, and together those threads become something stronger than any one of us could create alone. Beloved, community is not an abstract ideal. It's woven week by week in shared silence, shared song, shared grief, shared gratitude. The thread you bring matters. The thread I bring matters. A single thread frays easily, but a woven fabric can bear much weight. Worship is the loom on which we practice becoming fabric. Please rise in body or in spirit as you're willing and able, and join in singing our closing hymn, Faith is a Forest, in the gray hymnal, our responsive hymn, Faith is a Forest, number 194 in the gray hymnal. The words will also appear on the screens. It seems like this is going to go another 10 to 15 minutes. If you need to leave, we certainly understand, but I hope you'll be able to hang in there with us. This is also likely to be a training video for future lay leaders and Sunday service team members, so I thank you for participating. We've spent this hour building a container for meaning, for belonging, and for courage. Offerings have historically sustained communities long before social safety nets existed. Giving is not merely transactional. It shifts us from a scarcity mindset to a participation mindset. To give is to say, I am part of this. I help hold the container. Is Mike here? No. Gazzardo? No. Okay. Aaron?
Worship does not end with reflection. It continues through participation. If this community steadies you, if this sanctuary strengthens you, if this container helps you remember what is worthy, then I invite you to help sustain it. As an independent Unitarian Universalist congregation, we depend on your financial support to pay our staff, to maintain our beautiful campus, and to offer meaningful worship services and religious exploration programs. Instructions for online giving are on the screens. If you are visiting us for the first time, please feel free to let the basket pass. Your presence with us today is your gift. The morning offering will now be given and gratefully received. We appreciate your generosity and will be good stewards of your contributions. Please join me in dedicating the offering. You will see the words on the screen. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. As we extinguish this chalice, we prepare to carry its light beyond these walls. Please join me in saying the words written by Elizabeth Seeley Jones. The words will appear on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of a community, or the fire of commitment. These will carry in our hearts until we are together again.
As we return to our daily lives, I send you forth with these good words. Remember, we are not isolated beings. We belong to one another. Carry that knowledge with you. Let it shape what you do next. Amen, ashe, and blessed be.